Full disclaimer, as I believe I should be upfront on this topic, I'm not enrolled in any federally recognized tribe. While to my knowledge, my grandpa's grandmother was Haudenosaunee, and this is a personal issue for me, I won't pretend that I'm not white. I have white privilege and have not faced the discrimination that my ancestors faced. As such, I do not feel comfortable using the term that I'm going to discuss. Now, let's begin. The NFC East national football team in the Washington metropolitan area goes by a name that is historically a racial slur for Native Americans. For my listeners that are unaware, the name refers to skin being perceived as the color red. While this team originated as the Boston Braves in 1932, the team moved to Fenway Park and was renamed as the slur in 1933. The name change has been suggested to be in honor of former coach William Lone Star Dietz, but that explanation falls flat for a few reasons. One, the term has been a slur long enough for any true intention of honor to avoid it. Two, there was considerable doubt, even at the time, that Dietz was truly Native American. And three, that the name Braves already was a, if tasteless, reference to Native Americans, who admittedly formed a large percentage of the foundation of football. More likely, though, as the team began to play in a baseball field, as an article written in 1933 states, the team changed their name to avoid confusion with the Boston baseball team that was also called the Boston Braves. Less appropriative, perhaps, was the creation of the team's current logo in 1972. Walter Wetzel, a former chairman of the Blackfeet, designed the logo. Sort of. In reality, the logo is A, not considerably different than their previous design, and B, mostly just a recreation of the buffalo nickel, which was designed by white Norse American sculptor James Earl Fraser, who admittedly seems okay on a cursory glance. You've probably heard that there is dislike for the use of a racial slur as an American football team name. You've also maybe heard that this is a vocal minority of radicals opposed to the name, as Walter Wetzel's son has said. The Washington-based team has been adamant in their right to use the term, which is not being contested, and in its supposed inoffensiveness, which is hotly contested. Money has been poured into marketing and public relations to try to lull non-natives into passive support of racism, and I wish to expose how. There are three main tactics used to discredit any dissent. 1. The argument that the term is not a slur. 2. The argument that most Native Americans either don't care or support the name. And 3. The argument that changing the name would be too expensive and destructive to brand recognition. Now, as I have always seen argued by non-natives, is that term truly a slur? Yes, it is. In a previous video, I discussed how slurs are not slurs due to a magical formation of sounds, but through use to degrade and deride over time, and this term fits that bill. It was used to dehumanize Native Americans and classify them as others. It's also just incorrect, as humans don't really have red as a natural skin color outside of dermatological conditions. Now, as with many slurs, there are natives that are okay with the term, but there are an astounding amount opposed to the usage. There's a lie going around that the term was historically politically correct, which is, firstly, false, and secondly, immaterial, as time doesn't stop so you can use slurs with impunity. But still, who cares, right? You may have seen a 2014 report shared by the Washington Post that 9 out of 10 Native Americans are okay with the term being used in the same vein as terms like lions and giants and cardinals. I know, I've seen it. In my real life, outside of YouTube, I'm vocal in opposition to the use of this term by white billionaires to make money off from stereotypes about my ancestors, so I've been sent this study to shut me up. See? Real Native Americans don't actually care. Stop speaking over people who know better than you. But while my motivation to decry the name may be personal, my inspiration is not so. ChangeTheMascot.org keeps record of many of the declared supporters of a name change. The list is extensive. The biggest supporter is the NCAI, the National Congress of American Indians. The NCAI is the oldest and largest association of Native Americans and Alaskans, representing around 800,000 individuals that live on a res, which is about 70% of all natives on a res. Also backing the movement is the USET, the United South and Eastern Tribes, comprised of 26 tribal communities. And the list of individual tribes goes on. The Hoh Indian Tribe, the Penobscot Nation, the Samish Indian Nation, Shoshone-Bannock, Navajo. I've only begun to scratch the surface. Supporting the change are also many organizations, academic or otherwise. Over 1.2 million Native Americans are represented in this movement, with the numbers growing regularly, supported by both natives and non-natives. So, 9 out of 10, huh? This is one of the most misleading articles I have ever seen. If you only read the headline, which is what most people do, you'll come to the conclusion that the consensus in Native communities has been reached by empirical political science, with a polling size at least large enough to warrant so broad a claim. 504. That's how many people were surveyed, 504. Of the 90% surveyed that supported keeping the name, they represent less than 0.06% of the total number of individuals, res or not, in the NCAI alone. And it gets better. This survey was conducted over the phone, and as long as you have said that you have Native American ancestry, you're counted in this survey. Furthermore, there was no confirmation that the respondents were actually Native or of Native descent. While I don't doubt that there are Natives that both have no problem with the name and that responded to the poll, the argument that they were all Native Americans could not be verified. Washington Post posits that the majority of Native Americans support the name, when in reality they only know that a group of people who self-identified as either Native or having Native ancestry don't oppose it. In the article, they mention that it might be worth changing the name to appease a small minority, but they have not proven that it is a small minority. In fact, through the NCAI alone, there are enough individuals to account for roughly 1/5 of all Native Americans alive today. That's far from 10%. The only real, honest argument that Washington has left is that you would lose money if you change your name. Which, it's a petty reason, but let's not pretend it isn't why they hold on to it. And sure, might you lose some money? I mean, maybe. But it certainly wouldn't bankrupt a team. Most NFL teams have changed at least part of their names at some point or another, and Tennessee changed names from Oilers to Titans as recently as 1998. Even Washington used to be called the Braves. Also, by changing the name, you also open up a new resurgence in desire to purchase merchandise from die-hard fans. The only real reason to avoid changing the name is because you just don't care. And let's be honest, it's not legacy, it's not empowerment, and it's not even marketability. It's apathy. The owners would rather continue using a slur than put forth the minimal effort to be inoffensive. And why stop when you're still making money?